The space station looked like a giant metal flower floating in the darkness. Captain Jake Morrison watched it grow larger through the viewport of his ship, the New Horizon. He had seen many alien stations before, but this one was different. The Zephyrian station was all sharp edges and cold metal, with no curves or warm colors anywhere. "It looks like they built it with rulers and ice," said Ambassador Lisa Carter, as she joined him at the window. Her two children pressed their faces against the glass beside her. Amy and Ben were 10-year-old twins with bright eyes and endless curiosity. "Mom, why is it so pointy?" asked Ben, his breath fogging the viewport. "The Zephyrians like things to be exact and perfect," Lisa explained. "They think curves are messy and inefficient." Jake smiled at the children. In his 20 years of space travel, he had learned that kids always ask the best questions, the ones that adults forgot to think about. "Captain, we're getting a signal from the station," called Ryan Torres from the communications desk. His voice was steady, but Jake could hear the slight tension underneath. "Put it through," Jake said, straightening his uniform jacket. The main screen flickered to life, showing a tall, thin creature with green-scaled skin and large yellow eyes. The Zephyrian wore a white robe that looked more like a lab coat than clothing. When it spoke, its voice was flat and emotionless. "Human vessel New Horizon, you are cleared to dock at Bay 7. Present your delegation for inspection immediately." Upon arrival, the screen went dark without waiting for a response. "Friendly bunch," muttered Chief Engineer Maria Santos from her station. Lisa Carter sighed and knelt down to face her children. "Remember what we talked about, you two? The Zephyrians are very different from us. They don't smile much, and they don't like loud noises or sudden movements." "Will they try to shake our hands?" asked Amy. "No, sweetie. They don't touch other beings if they can help it. Just be polite and stay close to me." Jake felt the familiar bump and hiss as the New Horizon docked with the station. Through the airlock window, he could see several Zephyrians waiting for them. They stood perfectly still, like statues. The airlock opened with a soft whoosh, and immediately Jake noticed the cold. The station was much colder than human ships, and the air smelled like metal and cleaning chemicals. There were no decorations on the walls, no plants, no pictures. Everything was white or gray. A Zephyrian stepped forward. It was taller than the others, with more elaborate robes and a small metal device attached to its forehead. "I am High Administrator Vextar," it said in the same flat voice they had heard over the radio. "You are Captain Morrison." It was not a question. "That's right," Jake replied. "This is Ambassador Carter and her cultural attaché, Dr. Helen Brooks." Vextar's yellow eyes moved to the children. Its head tilted slightly like a bird examining something strange. "Explain the presence of these juveniles," it said. Dr. Brooks stepped forward. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but Jake knew she was one of the smartest people in human space when it came to alien cultures. "Ambassador Carter's children accompany her on diplomatic missions," Helen explained carefully. "In human culture, family units often travel together. The children are well behaved and will not interfere with our negotiations." Several Zephyrians behind Vextar made a sound that might have been their version of disgust. It sounded like air being let out of a tire. "This is highly irregular," Vextar said. "Juveniles have no place in matters of importance. Their presence suggests emotional weakness and poor judgment." Jake felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice calm. "The children will remain in the public areas of your station while we conduct our business. They won't be involved in the negotiations. The public areas are not designed for uncontrolled biological entities," another Zephyrian said. This one wore a blue robe instead of white. "Their unpredictable behavior could disrupt station operations." Amy and Ben pressed closer to their mother. Jake could see they were starting to feel unwelcome, even though they probably didn't understand all the words being used. "My children are very well behaved," Lisa said, her diplomatic smile becoming a little strained. "They understand the importance of respecting other cultures." Vextar stared at the twins for a long moment. "We will tolerate their presence," it finally said. "But they will be monitored at all times. Any disruption will result in their immediate confinement." The word confinement sent a chill down Jake's spine that had nothing to do with the station's temperature. "That won't be necessary," he said quickly. "Our security officer will escort them." "Negative," Vextar replied. "They will be supervised by our personnel. This is not negotiable." Jake looked at Lisa. He could see the concern in her eyes, but they both knew they needed this trade agreement. Humanity was expanding into new sectors of space, and they needed the Zephyrians' advanced technology. "Very well," Lisa said. "But I want to be informed of their location at all times." "Acceptable," Vextar said. It turned to the blue-robed Zephyrian. "Supervisor Keithan will ensure the juveniles remain in designated areas." The blue-robed alien nodded once. "They will be contained in observation areas where their primitive behaviors can be studied." The way it said "studied" made Jake's skin crawl, but before he could object, Vexitar was already walking away. "Follow," it commanded. "The council awaits." As they walked through the corridors of the station, Jake noticed that everything was designed for efficiency. There were no benches to sit on, no windows to look out of, no art on the walls. The Zephyrians they passed moved with mechanical precision, never speaking to each other unless necessary. Amy and Ben walked quietly between their mother and Dr. Brooks, their earlier excitement replaced by nervous silence. Jake could see them, looking around with wide eyes, trying to understand this strange place where no one smiled and everything was cold. "The council chamber is ahead," Vexistar announced as they approached a large door. "The juveniles will remain outside with Supervisor Keithan." Lisa knelt down and hugged her children. "I'll be right in there," she whispered. "Be good for Supervisor Keithan, and don't wander off." "We will, Mom," Amy said. "Promise," added Ben. Jake watched as the blue-robed Zephyrian led the children away down a side corridor. Something in his gut told him this was a mistake, but he couldn't put his finger on why. The Zephyrians were known for being logical and rule-following. What could go wrong with two well-behaved children on a peaceful space station? As the council chamber doors opened and they stepped inside to begin the most important negotiations of their careers, Jake had no idea that he was about to learn exactly how dangerous it could be to underestimate a parent's worst fears. The negotiations had been going on for 3 hours. Captain Jake Morrison sat beside Ambassador Lisa Carter in the cold council chamber, watching her handle the difficult Zephyrians with skill. The aliens wanted strict rules for every part of the trade agreement, while the humans wanted more flexibility. "Your species lacks proper discipline," High Administrator Vextar was saying. "Your emotional responses interfere with logical decision-making." Lisa kept her diplomatic smile, but Jake could see the strain around her eyes. She had asked about her children twice already, and both times Vextar had simply said they were being supervised properly. "Humans value both logic and emotion," Dr. Helen Brooks explained patiently. "We believe that feeling and thinking together make us stronger, not weaker." The Zephyrians made their tire hissing sound again. Jake was starting to really hate that noise. Meanwhile, in another part of the station, Amy and Ben Carter walked beside Supervisor Keithan through a long white corridor. The blue-robed Zephyrian had not spoken to them since leaving the council chamber. It just walked ahead, expecting them to follow. "Where are we going?" Amy asked politely. Keithan did not answer. "Can we see the stars from somewhere?" Ben tried. Still, no answer. The twins looked at each other. They were used to adults who talked to them, who answered their questions and treated them like real people. This alien was treating them like pets or luggage. They walked past several doors until Keithan stopped at one marked with strange symbols. The door slid open to reveal a small room with windows showing the stars outside. There were 2 metal chairs and nothing else. "You will remain here," Keithan said in its flat voice. "Do not touch anything. Do not make excessive noise. Do not move from this location." "But we thought we could explore the public areas," Amy said. "That's what our mom agreed to." "Plans have changed," Keithan replied. "You will be studied to understand human juvenile behavior patterns." Ben stepped closer to his sister. "Studied how?" "Through observation and testing," the alien said, as if this should be obvious. Your primitive emotional responses will be documented. Before either child could ask what that meant, Keithan stepped back and the door slid shut. There was a soft click that sounded very much like a lock. Amy ran to the door and pushed against it. It did not move. Ben, she said quietly. I think we're locked in. Ben joined her at the door. They could hear Keithan's footsteps getting farther away down the corridor. This isn't right, Ben said. Mom said we could explore. She didn't say anything about being locked up. Amy looked around the small room. The windows showed the beautiful stars, but suddenly the view felt more like a prison than an adventure. We need to tell someone. Back in the council chamber, Lisa, Carter was trying to focus on the trade negotiations, but part of her mind kept wandering to her children. As a mother, she had developed a sixth sense about when something was wrong with Amy and Ben. Right now, that sense was sending up warning signals. Excuse me, she said during a break in the discussion. I would like to check on my children. Unnecessary, Vextar replied immediately. They are being properly supervised. I understand that, but I would still like to see them. Human parental anxiety is inefficient, another Zephyrian said. It interferes with productive work. Jake watched Lisa's jaw tighten. He had seen that look before, and it usually meant trouble. My children are my responsibility, Lisa said carefully. I need to know they are safe and comfortable. They are contained and monitored, Vextar stated. This should be sufficient. The word contained hit Lisa like a physical blow. What do you mean, contained? They are in a secure observation area where their behavior can be properly documented, Vextar explained, as if talking to a slow student. This is standard procedure for uncontrolled biological entities. Jake felt the temperature in the room drop even further, but this time it had nothing to do with the station's climate control. Lisa Carter was getting that look that every parent gets when someone threatens their child. He had seen it before in other diplomatic situations, and it never ended well. You locked up my children? Lisa asked, her voice dangerously quiet. They are being studied, Vextar corrected. Their emotional responses to controlled stimuli will help us understand human weaknesses. Dr. Brooks quickly stood up. Hi, Administrator. I think there may be a misunderstanding here, but Jake could see it was too late. Lisa Carter had gone completely still, and her eyes had taken on a cold fire that he had never seen before. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. You will take me to my children right now. Negative, Vextar replied. The study period has only just begun. Interruption would contaminate the data. Jake saw Lisa's hands curl into fists on the table. Dr. Brooks moved closer, ready to intervene if necessary. Those are not test subjects, Lisa said, still in that terrifyingly quiet voice. Those are my children. They are 10 years old, and they are scared, and you will release them immediately. Impossible, Vextar said. The research protocol requires a minimum of 6 hours of observation. That was when Lisa Carter stopped being a diplomat and became something much more dangerous. She stood up slowly, her chair scraping against the metal floor. Communications Officer Torres, she said, without taking her eyes off Vextar. Contact, the ship. Code Yellow. Jake knew Code Yellow. It meant potential threat to crew members. Lisa, he said quietly, let's think about this. I am thinking about it, she replied. I'm thinking about 2 scared children locked in a room by aliens, who see them as test subjects. I'm thinking about how they must be feeling right now, wondering why their mother isn't coming to help them. Dr. Brooks stepped forward. Hi, Administrator Vextar. In human culture, separating parents from their children is considered one of the most serious threats possible. I recommend we resolve this immediately. Human emotional weakness is not our concern, Vextar replied coldly. Jake saw Ryan Torres touch his ear device and nod. The message was sent. On the new horizon, alarms would be sounding, and security. Chief Alex Rodriguez would be asking very pointed questions about the safety of 2 human children. In their locked room, Amy and Ben had found something interesting. Ben had been examining the walls and discovered that one panel looked different from the others. When he pressed on it, it slid aside slightly, revealing some kind of maintenance access. "Amy, look at this," he whispered. His sister came over and peered into the small opening. Cool air was flowing through it, and they could hear sounds from other parts of the station. "It's like a vent system," Amy said, "like in the adventure movies. Should we try to crawl through it?" Amy thought about it. Their mother had always taught them to be careful, but she had also taught them to think for themselves. Right now they were locked up like prisoners, and no one knew where they were. "Mom always says to use our heads in tough situations," Amy said finally. "I think this counts as a tough situation." Ben nodded. "If we can find a way back to the main corridors, we can find our mom." They looked at each other and made the decision that 10-year-olds have been making for thousands of years when adults fail to protect them. They decided to save themselves. As Ben started to squeeze into the maintenance tunnel, neither of them knew that their disappearance from the observation room was about to turn a diplomatic incident into something much more serious. The Zephyrians had made the mistake of threatening human children, and now they were about to learn why that was such a dangerous thing to do. Back in the council chamber, Lisa Carter was no longer sitting at the negotiation table. She was standing at the door, and her entire posture had changed from diplomat to predator. "Hi, Administrator Vextar," she said in a voice that made Jake's skin crawl. "You have exactly 5 minutes to bring me my children, or this conversation is over." "Are you threatening us?" Vexitar asked. Lisa smiled, and it was the most frightening smile Jake had ever seen. "No," she said. "I'm making you a promise." The silence in the council chamber was broken by a soft beeping sound from Ryan Torres's communication device. He touched his ear and listened, then his face went pale. "Captain," Ryan said, his voice tight with worry. "We've lost contact with Amy and Ben." Lisa Carter turned from the door so fast that 2 Zephyrians actually stepped backward. "What do you mean lost contact?" "Their emergency beacons went offline 3 minutes ago," Ryan explained. "Alex is running a full scan of the station now." High Administrator Vextar made a dismissive gesture with one scaled hand. "The juveniles are secure in their observation chamber. Your primitive tracking devices simply cannot function properly in our advanced facility." Captain Jake Morrison stood up slowly. Something had changed in his expression. The friendly ship captain was gone, replaced by something much more dangerous. "Ryan," Jake said in a voice that was calm and cold, "contact Chief Rodriguez. Tell him to go to full alert status." "Jake," Dr. Helen Brooks said quietly, "let's not escalate this situation." "Helen," Jake replied without taking his eyes off Vextar. "They locked up 2 10-year-old children and now claim they don't know where they are. I'd say the situation has already escalated." Meanwhile, Amy and Ben Carter were crawling through the narrow maintenance tunnel behind the walls of the station. The space was cramped and dark, but they could hear voices and machinery from different rooms as they moved. "I think we're getting closer to the main areas," Amy whispered to her brother behind her. "I can hear more people talking." "My knees hurt," Ben whispered back. "How much farther?" "I don't know, but we have to keep going. Mom is probably worried. Sick by now." They crawled forward until Amy saw light ahead. There was another access panel, and through the cracks they could see into what looked like a corridor with Zephyrians walking past. "Should we try to get out here?" Ben asked. "Let me listen first," Amy said. She pressed her ear to the panel and tried to make out what the aliens were saying. "The human juveniles have disappeared from the observation chamber," one Zephyrian was saying to another. "Supervisor Kethin is conducting a search." "How is this possible?" the second alien replied. "The chamber was secured." "Unknown. The juveniles appear to be more resourceful than anticipated." Amy looked back at Ben with wide eyes. "They know we're gone," she mouthed silently. Back in the council chamber, Lisa Carter was no longer pretending to be diplomatic. She walked over to Vexistar and stopped just close enough to make the tall alien uncomfortable. "I want my children found right now," she said, "and I want them brought to me unharmed." "Your emotional response is counterproductive," Vexitar replied, but Jake noticed that the alien's voice was not quite as steady as before. We will locate the juveniles and return them to their secure location. Secure location? Lisa repeated. You mean prison cell? Observation chamber, Vextar corrected. Lisa laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Hi, Administrator. I don't think you understand what you've done. You've taken 2 human children from their parent. Do you have any idea what that means? It means you are displaying the exact emotional weakness we are attempting to study, Vextar said. Dr. Brooks stepped forward quickly. Hi, Administrator. Perhaps I can explain something about human psychology that might be relevant here. Proceed, Vextar said, sounding bored. Humans are what we call persistence predators, Helen said carefully. In our evolutionary history, we hunted by following prey for days or weeks until it collapsed from exhaustion. We never gave up. We never stopped. And when human children are threatened, she paused and looked at Lisa Carter's face. That hunting instinct becomes much stronger. For the first time since they had arrived, High Administrator Vexitar looked uncertain. Are you suggesting that Ambassador Carter will become violent? It asked. I'm suggesting, Helen replied, that you have activated something in human nature that you really don't want to deal with. Every human parent will fight to the death to protect their children. Every single one. Jake's communication device beeped. He answered it and listened for a moment, then looked up with grim satisfaction. Chief Rodriguez has identified the observation chamber where the children were being held, he announced. It's empty. There are signs that they escaped through a maintenance access. Lisa Carter smiled again, and this time there was fierce pride mixed with the deadly calm. My children are smart. They're not going to sit quietly while aliens treat them like lab rats. This is unacceptable, Vextar declared. Security teams will be deployed to recapture the juveniles. The word recapture was a mistake. Lisa Carter went very still, and when she spoke, her voice was barely audible. Recapture? They're not animals, you scaled piece of trash. They're children. Every human in the room tensed. Jake had never heard Lisa use language like that, even in private. Your insults do not concern us, Vextar said, but Jake noticed that several other Zephyrians had moved toward the exits. Ryan, Lisa said without looking away from Vextar, send a message to the New Horizon. Tell Chief Rodriguez to prepare boarding parties. Lisa, Jake warned, that's an act of war. No, Lisa replied. That's a mother getting her children back. Ryan hesitated for a moment, then touched his communication device. Chief Ambassador Carter requests that you prepare boarding parties and stand by for further orders. There was a pause, then Alex Rodriguez's voice came through clearly enough for everyone to hear. Tell the ambassador that boarding parties are already suited up and ready. We're just waiting for the word. High Administrator Vextar's yellow eyes went wide. You cannot threaten violence on a diplomatic mission. I'm not threatening anything, Lisa said. I'm telling you exactly what's going to happen. You're going to find my children and bring them to me safely, or my security chief is going to come over here with armed soldiers and tear this station apart looking for them. That would be a violation of interstellar law, Vextar protested. So, is kidnapping children? Lisa shot back. Dr. Brooks tried one more time to defuse the situation. High Administrator, I strongly recommend that you locate the children immediately. When humans feel their young are threatened, they become capable of almost anything. We do not negotiate with emotional primitives, Vexitar declared. That was when Captain Morrison finally lost his temper. He stood up and walked over to stand beside Lisa Carter. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of 20 years, commanding ships in dangerous space. High Administrator Vextar, Jake said quietly. I've been polite up until now because this was supposed to be a diplomatic mission, but you've detained 2 human children, lost track of them, and now you're refusing to help find them. So let me make this very simple for you. Jake leaned forward slightly, and his eyes were as cold as space itself. Those children have been missing for over an hour. Every minute they stay missing, more humans are going to hear about this. And every human who hears about it is going to want to come here and help get them back. Do you understand what I'm telling you? You speak of violence, Vextar said, but its voice was less certain than before. I speak of consequences, Jake replied. You've made the mistake of threatening human children. That changes everything. As if to prove his point, Ryan Torres looked up from his communication station with a grim expression. Captain, he said, long-range sensors are picking up 3 more human ships heading this way. Fast. Vextar turned to look at the communication station. That is impossible. We have not contacted anyone. You didn't need to, Jake explained. Word spreads fast in human space when children are in danger. Those ships probably have parents on board. Parents who heard that human kids were taken by aliens. For the first time since the negotiations began, High Administrator Vexitar looked genuinely worried. What do you want? It asked. Lisa Carter stepped forward one more time. I want my children back. I want them safe. And I want them back right now. And if we cannot locate them immediately? Lisa smiled that terrible smile again. Then you're going to learn why every other alien species in the galaxy knows better than to mess with human families. Amy and Ben Carter had been crawling through the maintenance tunnels for almost an hour. Their knees were scraped and their clothes were dirty, but they kept moving. Amy had found 2 more access panels, but each time they looked out, they saw only Zephyrian security teams searching the corridors. Amy, Ben whispered. I'm getting scared. Me too, she whispered back. But we have to be brave. Mom always says that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing even when you are scared. What's the right thing? Amy thought about it. Getting back to Mom so she knows we're okay. They crawled forward until they heard voices that sounded different. Not the flat, emotionless Zephyrian voices, but something warmer. I'm telling you, those kids are smart, a human voice was saying. If they got out of that room, they're probably trying to find their way back to us. Amy's eyes went wide. She pressed her face to the nearest access panel and saw 2 humans in security uniforms standing in the corridor. She recognized one of them as Chief Rodriguez from their ship. Should we call out to them? Ben whispered. Before Amy could answer, they heard heavy footsteps and Zephyrian voices approaching. Search every access point, a Zephyrian was commanding. The juveniles must be located before the human vessels arrive. Amy made a quick decision. She pushed hard on the access panel and it popped open. Both children tumbled out into the corridor, landing in a heap at Chief Rodriguez's feet. Amy! Ben! Rodriguez exclaimed, dropping to his knees to check if they were hurt. Are you okay? Where have you been? We escaped through the walls, Amy said breathlessly. They locked us up and said they were going to study us like lab animals. Chief? Rodriguez's face went dark with anger. Dr. Peterson, he said to the other human, get these kids back to the ship immediately. What about you, Chief? Dr. Peterson asked. I'm going to have a conversation with some aliens about the proper treatment of human children, Rodriguez replied in a voice that promised trouble. Meanwhile, in the council chamber, the situation was getting worse by the minute. High Administrator. Vextar had called in more security, but Captain Morrison and Ambassador Carter had not moved from their positions near the door. The juveniles will be located, Vextar announced. Our search teams are very thorough. Your search team's better. Be fast, Lisa Carter replied. Because those ships that are heading our way aren't going to wait around for you to find my children. Dr. Brooks was monitoring her portable communication device. Lisa, she said quietly, I'm picking up military transmissions. Those incoming. Ships are armed. Jake Morrison nodded grimly. Helen, patch me through to the lead vessel. A moment later, a gruff voice filled the chamber through the communication system. This is Admiral Frank Collins aboard the Defender. Captain Morrison, what's your status? Admiral, Jake replied. We have a situation here. 2 human children were detained by station security and are currently missing. There was a long pause before Admiral Collins responded. When he did, his voice was ice cold. Did you say detained? As in arrested? As in locked up for behavioral study? Lisa Carter interrupted. My 10-year-old twins. Another pause, longer this time. High Administrator Vextar, Admiral Collins's voice boomed through the chamber. This is Admiral Collins of the Human Defense Fleet. I have 3 heavy cruisers, 6 destroyers, and about 2,000 very angry soldiers heading your way. You have 1 hour to resolve this situation. Vextar moved closer to the communication system. Admiral Collins, this is a diplomatic matter. Military intervention is not warranted. Military intervention becomes warranted the moment you start locking up human kids, Collins replied. I've got parents on these ships, Vextar. Mothers and fathers who heard that alien authorities detained human children. Do you know what human parents do when other people's children are threatened? They respond emotionally and irrationally, Vextar answered. They respond like a pack, Collins corrected. And right now, you've got the whole pack coming for you. Jake's personal communicator beeped. He answered it and his face immediately brightened. Chief Rodriguez found them, he announced. Amy and Ben are safe. They're being escorted back to our ship. Lisa Carter's knees nearly buckled with relief. Are they hurt? Scraped knees and dirty clothes, Jake replied. But they're okay. For a moment it looked like the crisis might be over. Then High Administrator Vextar made another terrible mistake. Security teams will intercept the juveniles and return them to the observation facility, it announced. The study must be completed. The silence that followed was so complete that Jake could hear his own heartbeat. Lisa Carter turned slowly to face Vextar, and every human in the room stepped back instinctively. What did you just say? Lisa asked in a whisper. The research protocol requires a minimum observation period, Vextar explained, as if talking to a particularly slow student. The juveniles will be returned to secure containment, Lisa Carter exploded. You will not touch my children again, she screamed, her voice echoing off the metal walls. They are not your test subjects. They are not your prisoners. They are my babies, and if you so much as look at them wrong, I will tear this station apart with my bare hands. Every Zephyrian in the chamber recoiled from the raw fury in her voice. They had never heard anything like it. In their cold, logical society, no one ever displayed such intense emotion. Captain Morrison stepped up beside Lisa, and his voice was deadly calm. High Administrator, I strongly suggest you cancel any orders regarding those children. The study must proceed, Vextar insisted, but its voice was shaking now. Ryan, Jake said to his communications officer. Send a message to Chief Rodriguez. Tell him that if any Zephyrian approaches those children, he has permission to use any force necessary to protect them. Aye, Captain, Ryan replied, his fingers already working on his device. Dr. Brooks tried one last time to explain. High Administrator, you need to understand something about human psychology. What you're seeing right now is not unusual behavior. This is how every human parent reacts when their children are threatened. We cannot help it. It's built into our biology. Your biology is flawed, Vextar declared. Our biology, Lisa Carter snarled, is what kept our species alive for millions of years, and right now it's telling me that you are a threat to my children. Admiral Collins's voice crackled through the communication system again. Status report, Captain Morrison. I'm picking up raised voices. The Zephyrians want to re-detain the children for further study, Jake replied. The silence from the Admiral lasted almost 30 seconds. Vextar, Collins finally said, and his voice was barely controlled rage. Let me explain something to you. I have a daughter. She's 12 years old, and she likes to draw pictures of spaceships. If anyone ever locked her up to study her like some kind of animal, I would personally come down there and show you what human parents are really capable of. Your threats do not concern us, Vextar replied, but Jake noticed that most of the other Zephyrians had quietly left the chamber. They're not threats, Collins said simply. They're promises. You have 45 minutes to guarantee the safety of those children, or we're coming aboard. Lisa Carter walked over to the nearest wall panel and placed her hand on it. The metal was cold under her palm, but her eyes were burning with protective fury. High Administrator Vextar, she said quietly. I want you to listen very carefully. Those children you want to study are named Amy and Ben. Amy likes astronomy and wants to be a pilot when she grows up. Ben loves animals and wants to be a veterinarian. They're not test subjects, they're not specimens, they're real people with hopes and dreams and fears. She turned to face the alien directly. And they're mine. I carried them for 9 months. I held them when they were born. I've kissed their scraped knees and read them bedtime stories and taught them to be kind to others. Every instinct I have, every fiber of my being exists to protect them. Lisa stepped closer to Vextar. So when you say you want to lock them up again, what you're really saying is that you want to fight me. And High Administrator, I promise you this, you do not want to fight a human mother protecting her children. Vextar looked around the chamber and realized that it was now alone with 5 humans who all looked like they were ready to commit violence. Outside, 3 human warships were approaching with soldiers who had heard that children were in danger. For the first time in its long life, High Administrator Vexitar began to understand that logic alone was not always enough to predict how other species would behave, and that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe was not a weapon or a warship, sometimes it was a parent. High Administrator Vextar stood alone in the council chamber, surrounded by humans who looked ready to tear the station apart. Outside, 3 human warships were getting closer every minute. The alien's logical mind was trying to process what had gone wrong, but nothing in Zephyrian experience had prepared it for this situation. "Status report," came Admiral Collins' voice through the communication system. "Those ships of mine are 30 minutes out." Captain Jake Morrison looked at his watch. "Admiral, the children are safe aboard our ship, but the Zephyrians are still insisting they have the right to detain them for study. Is that so?" Collins replied. The ice in his voice could have frozen water. "Put me through to their leader." Vextar reluctantly moved closer to the communication panel. "This is High Administrator Vextar." "Vextar, this is Admiral Collins. I'm going to make this real simple for you. In 28 minutes, I'm going to have armed soldiers on your station. They're going to be looking for any reason to use their weapons. Don't give them one. You cannot board our station without permission," Vextar protested. "Watch me," Collins said simply. Dr. Helen Brooks stepped forward and faced Vextar directly. "High Administrator, I need you to understand something. Right now, you have the full attention of the human military. Every parent in human space is hearing about what happened here. They're all asking the same question. What happens to aliens who lock up human children? We were conducting legitimate research," Vextar said, but its voice was getting weaker. "You were traumatizing kids," Lisa Carter snapped. "My children are going to have nightmares about being trapped in your cold little room." Ambassador Carter walked over to the large window that showed space outside. In the distance, 3 bright spots were growing larger. "Do you see those ships, Vextar?" she asked without turning around. "Each one of those ships has about 500 humans on it. Humans who heard that children were in danger and dropped everything to come help. That's what we do. When human children are threatened, every human becomes their protector." Vextar looked out the window at the approaching ships. "This response is entirely disproportionate to the situation." "No," Jake Morrison said firmly. "This response is exactly what you should expect when you mess with human families." Ryan Torres looked up from his communication station. "Captain, I'm getting reports from across human space. Word is spreading fast. There are at least 12 more ships heading this way." 12 more ships? Vextar's voice cracked slightly. "Cargo, haulers, passenger liners, even some civilian ships," Ryan explained. "All of them changing course to come here." Dr. Brooks pulled out her portable computer and showed the screen to Vextar. "High Administrator, look at this. These are messages from human colonies across 3 sectors. Parents saying they're coming to help. Grandparents demanding justice. Teachers, doctors, shopkeepers, all saying the same thing. Nobody hurts human children." Vextar stared at the screen. There were hundreds of messages and more appearing every few seconds. "This is madness," the alien said. "They do not even know these particular juveniles." "That's where you're wrong," Lisa Carter said, turning from the window. "Every human child belongs to all of us. When you threaten one, you threaten them all." The communication system crackled to life again. "Captain Morrison, this is Chief Rodriguez. The children are secure on the New Horizon. They're asking when they can see their mother." Lisa's face softened for the first time in hours. "Tell them I'll be there soon, Alex." "Will do, Ambassador," Also, you should know, Amy asked me to tell you something. She said to tell the aliens that humans don't abandon their families. Lisa smiled, and this time it was warm instead of terrifying. That's my daughter. Vextar watched this exchange with growing confusion. You display affection for juveniles who caused significant disruption to station operations. I display affection, Lisa corrected, for my children who were smart enough and brave enough to escape when adults failed to protect them. Jake's communicator beeped. He listened for a moment, then looked up with a grim expression. Admiral Collins is requesting permission to dock, he announced. He says his soldiers are getting restless. Vexitar finally seemed to understand the magnitude of the situation. What do you want from us? Lisa Carter walked over and stood directly in front of the tall alien. I want a guarantee that no human child will ever be detained on this station again. I want an official apology to my children, and I want a written agreement that any future human visitors will be treated with respect. And if we refuse? Vextar asked. Lisa looked out the window at the approaching warships. Then you get to explain to Admiral Collins why you think alien research is more important than human children. Dr. Brooks opened her computer again. Hi, Administrator. I've been monitoring communication channels. The story is spreading to other alien species now. The Altarians are calling emergency sessions. The Centauri Federation is demanding explanations. Everyone wants to know why the Zephyrians decided to pick a fight with human parents. We did not pick a fight, Vextar protested. You locked up children, Jake said bluntly. In human culture, that's the same as declaring war. Ryan Torres looked up from his station. Captain, Admiral Collins is requesting an immediate response. His lead ship is preparing to dock whether we give permission or not. Jake looked at Vextar. Hi, Administrator. You have about 30 seconds to make a decision. Either you agree to Ambassador Carter's terms, or you explain your research methods to a very angry admiral and his soldiers. Vextar looked around the chamber at the humans staring back at it. Every face showed the same message. Human children were not to be touched. The Zephyrian Council will agree to your terms, Vextar said finally. All of them? Lisa pressed. All of them. Say it clearly, Lisa demanded. Vexitar straightened its robes and spoke in its formal voice. The Zephyrian Council formally agrees that no human juveniles will be detained for research purposes. We apologize to the juveniles Amy and Ben Carter for the distress caused by our actions. We agree to treat all future human visitors with appropriate respect for their cultural values. Lisa nodded. Jake, tell Admiral Collins that the situation is resolved. Jake spoke into his communicator. Admiral, the Zephyrians have agreed to all our terms. The children are safe, and there will be no repeat incidents. There was a pause before Collins responded. Understood, Captain. But my ships are staying in the area for a while, just to make sure our new friends remember their promises. Copy that, Admiral. Dr. Brooks closed her computer and looked at Vextar. Hi, Administrator. I hope you've learned something important today. What would that be? Vexitar asked. That human emotions aren't weaknesses, Helen explained. They're our greatest strength. The love we feel for our children makes us capable of anything. Absolutely anything. Lisa Carter gathered her things and headed for the door. I'm going to see my children now. This diplomatic mission is over. As she reached the door, she turned back to Vextar one last time. Hi, Administrator, I want you to remember something. Today you met 5 humans who were willing to fight an entire space station to protect 2 children. But we're not special. Every human parent would have done exactly the same thing. She paused and looked directly into Vextar's yellow eyes. The next time you think about studying human children, remember that somewhere out there their parents are willing to cross the galaxy to keep them safe. Remember that when humans say family comes first, we mean it. And remember that the most dangerous thing you can ever do is threaten a human child. Lisa Carter walked out of the council chamber, followed by her team. They left behind a very quiet Zephyrian who was already composing a report that would change how his species viewed humans forever. The report would be simple. Humans are protective of their offspring to a degree that defies logical analysis. Recommend extreme caution when interacting with human juveniles. The risk of catastrophic diplomatic incident is unacceptable. But the most important note would be added at the end. Human emotional bonds are not a weakness to be exploited. They are a strength that makes humans collectively dangerous when their young are threatened. This strength should be respected, not studied. An hour later, Amy and Ben Carter were safe in their mother's arms aboard the New Horizon, telling her about their adventure in the maintenance tunnels. Outside, human ships patrolled the area as a reminder that some things were never to be tested. The Zephyrians had learned that in the vast galaxy, there were many powerful weapons and dangerous forces, but none were more dangerous than parents, protecting their children. And humans, it turned out, were very good parents indeed.